Greetings! This video presentation is about the lesson 4, which is the psychological perspective of the self. To give us a brief introduction about the topic, here is Ian Mark Manalansan. Ian.
First, let us define the two important words of the topic, psychology and self. Psychology is the scientific study of the mind and behavior. So everything that deals with the mind is under psychology, even mental illnesses. Now, the self, by definition, is a reference by an individual to the same individual. So it's kind of introspection where we refer to our own reflective consciousness, therefore creating the so-called self. Now, that is the psychology and self. The next slide, the psychology of studying self is about either the cognitive and affective representations of one's identity or subject of experience. The cognitive involves the conscious intellectual activity of a person. Examples of it are thinking, reasoning, or memorizing. However, the affective one is consisted of feelings and emotions. But both of these are ways on how we can represent ourselves in certain situations or as a subject of experience. Now, the next topic is the self and itself. William James, a psychologist, has presented in his document The Principles of Psychology numerous concepts of selves. However, James' main concepts only involves the I self and the me self. The I self is the thought of knowing who we are as a person, no? And it differs from the me self because the me self, or shall we call it empirical self, is based on a person's personal experiences. So they differ from each other. Now that two are the main concepts of William James in his Principles of Psychology. Now, the self has three categories that will be explained by my groupmate.
The three categories of self. Its constituents. The first category is its constituents of self, which is composed of the material self, the social self, and the spiritual self that will be further discussed later. The feelings and emotions they arouse, which is the self-feelings. Self-feelings is a feeling that our body has. It is felt in the body. It is our self-centered emotion. And the last category of self is the actions to which they prompt, self-seeking and self-preservation. Self-seeking is the act or practice of selfishly advancing one's own ends, while the self-preservation is a behavior or set of behaviors that ensures the survival of an organism. And now, let's move to the three subcategories of self. Material self, constituted by our bodies, clothes, immediate family, and home, pertains to the object, places, or even people which have the label mind. The second is the social self. It is based on our interactions with society and the reaction of people towards us. It is how we perceive ourselves in relation to others. It involves relationship building, empathizing, and communicating. And the last one is the spiritual self. It is the most intimate because it is more satisfying for the person that they have the ability to argue and discriminate one's moral sensibility, conscience, and indomitable will. The spiritual self is you in your most beautiful and powerful form. It is the authentic self, the unconditioned part.
Carl Rogers is one of the founder of humanistic psychology. He is a psychologist biography. He developed the person-centered, or also known as a client-centered. He believes that a non-directive inversion because he believes that we have a potential to solve our own problems by discovering our oneself and by being fully honest with ourselves. In the self-concept, he come up with three sides of triangle. The first one is the perceived self, which is the sees self, and others sees them. It's more about ourself. The next one is the real self, which is the who really is, how they act, how they look, how they think. And the last one is the ideal self, which is what he would like to be. It consists of their desires, hope, goals, and they want to be in the future.
The
Daniel C.W. wrote in his article Psychoanalysis versus Postmodern Psychology. He has emphasized how Freud perceived person as a unified beings and Gergen's concept of multiple selves. In Freud's concept, he argued that mind is divided into three connected but distinct parts. The first of the three divisions of Sigmund Freud's part of the mind is the id. It can be simplified put as the pleasure principle. It consists of the things that are outside of our conscious awareness, including many memories, thoughts, and urges of which we are not aware. Pleasure principle because it is the best known as the pleasure-seeking side, immature, impulsive, childlike, and cannot delay gratification. The second of Freud's division is the ego. The ego refers to the I and works on the reality principle, working out realistic ways of satisfying the demands of the id, the superego, and reality. The ego represents a person's sense of self and is devoted to understanding and interacting with the outside world. The final concept of Freud's is superego. The superego refers to the moral judgment of one's conscience and moral judge of conduct violation of rules lead them to guilt feelings. The superego is the part of mind that handles higher moral concepts such as the concepts of right or wrong. The superego consists of two systems, the conscience and the ideal self. The conscience is our inner voice that tells us when we have done something wrong. The ideal self is an imaginary picture of how you ought to be, how one should treat others, and how to behave as a member of society.
The two divisions of mind, the conscious and unconscious. Conscious are the thoughts that we are aware of. According to Freud, all of the things you are aware of and thinking about right now are part of your conscious mind. It is restricted in capacity and resembles short-term memory in several ways. Your consciousness includes your awareness of both yourself and the environment. Unconscious are the thoughts that we are not aware of. According to Freud, the unconscious mind is defined as a reservoir of feelings, thoughts, urges, and memories that outside of conscious awareness. Freud has argued that self has a multiple parts. He still believed that ultimately we are unified beings. Ego remains at the helm of mind, guiding the id and superego, and staying at the center. Thus, Gergen argued that having a flexible sense of self allows for multiple selves, that it is up to the self to define himself as warm or cold, dominant or submissive, sexy or plain. According to Kenneth Gergen, proponent of postmodern psychology, the individual has many potential selves. How we bring ourselves in every situation will help him get through for a day. Therefore, maybe it is healthy to have many masks. Multiple selfhood is a part of what it means to be human, and forcing oneself to stick to oneself concept may be unhealthy. Self, according to Carl Jung, signifies the unification of consciousness and unconsciousness in a person, and representing the psyche as a whole. It is realized as the product of individuation, which in his views is the process of integrating various aspects of one's personality. The self originates from an inborn dynamic structure, integrating the essential drives of our brain to mind, and leading both to instinctual behavioral actions and to archetypal psychological experiences.
The psychological perspective of the self of Erik Erikson is that personality develops in a predetermined order through 8 stages of psychosocial development, ranging from infancy to adulthood. These stages is where an individual gets his or her healthy and unhealthy personality traits. Each stage has 2 psychosocial crises that are defined as the psychological needs of an individual conflicting the needs of the society, and these can result to either positive or negative. According to his theory, if the outcome of the stage is positive, it will affect the person's personality in a healthy way. But if the outcome is negative, it will affect the person's personality
in an unhealthy way.
Moving on, let us discuss and talk about the different stages of psychosocial development brought by Erik Erikson. The first stage is trust versus mistrust. This can be seen in infants up to 1.5 years of age. The basic virtue acquired in this stage is hope. This is considered as the most important stage because this is where everything starts. Babies learn to trust their parents and people around them. The second stage will be autonomy versus shame. This stage can be seen in ages 1.5 years old up to 3 years old. The basic virtue acquired in this stage is will. In this stage, children develop their sense of self-control. The third stage will be initiative versus guilt. In this stage, children assert power and interact with others. It means they start to socialize with other people. This stage can be seen in ages 3 to 5 years old, and the basic virtue acquired in this skill is purpose. The fourth stage will be industry versus inferiority at ages 5 to 12 years old. The acquired skill or basic virtue in this stage is competency. This stage is where children start to develop a sense of pride and competence. They start and they are able to form a strong self-concept. The fifth stage, which is identity versus role confusion. The basic virtue highlighted in this stage is fidelity, ages 12 to 18 years old. In this stage, adolescents explore their independence and develop a sense of self. This is the stage where they start to make social relationships with other people. The sixth stage is intimacy versus isolation. The highlighted basic virtue in this stage is love, and it can be seen from ages 18 to 40 years old. This is the stage where people start to form romantic relationships with other people. Among the activities in this stage is forming intimate relationships with other people. The seventh stage, or the second to the last stage, is generativity versus stagnation, and it can be seen in ages 40 to 65 years old, and the basic virtue highlighted in this stage is care. In this stage, people think how they can contribute to the world. Example of this contribution is parenthood and also their work. The last stage is the eighth stage, which is integrity versus despair, and can be seen in ages 65 plus or 65 more than above. In this stage, the highlighted basic virtue in this stage is wisdom. This is the stage wherein a person starts to reflect back on life and ask themselves, did I live a meaningful life? This is the stage wherein they start reflecting everything in their life. Now let us move on to the next topic, which is true self and fake self, to be discussed by our next presenter.
The true self and fake self. The true self and fake self are the psychological dualism conceptualized by English psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott. True self understands what you really want and what you really need to be joyful. The fake self is an artificial persona that people create very early in life to protect themselves from experiencing development trauma, shock, and stress in close relationships. When you're being true to yourself, you are completely honest with what you feel, deeply value, and desire. It also means communicating your feelings wholeheartedly, both with yourself and others, allowing your truth to flow through you and into the world. This is likely the primary cause of why people have such a wide variety of experiences, options, and perspective on the world around them. In general, agency refers to how you assess every area of your life, including yourself, an intention that deals with action taken because this behavior are among the things that people come into contact with on a daily basis.